Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to Post-Match Raw, the Cup edition. So, you know, it's me. The big lads don't do the cup games, but nobody deserved to do that game, I'm afraid, because it was a bit boring, let's be fair. But we're here to make fun of it, and I'm joined by my gaming co-host, Karl. How are you doing, Karl? It's been a while.
Not too bad, Guy. It has indeed. I mean, I almost feel like suggesting just doing an off-the-cuff one-up here, you know. But I suppose Steve would be a bit gutted if we did that. So we'll stick to the football.
That's true. And nobody noticed. We just eventually throw in a penalty shootout chat, and nobody'd notice. Oh, but yeah, it was a weird game. I mean, probably the best place to start is. What do you make of the cups? Obviously, last year was so much fun with the cup runs in both competitions, obviously, and a couple mad games, which is the Leicester game, Arsenal game, etc., and the FA Cup games. But this one, it obviously feels so much different because the league form's been so poor, so many injuries in the squad. What were you feeling coming into a League Cup tie against I think the playoff team in League One? I was going to say League One, Jesus Christ. But yeah, what was your feelings coming into the League Cup season?
Yeah, I mean, I think like last year, obviously, you know, things are going so much better for us in the league and in all competitions. So I think there was a lot of confidence around the club. There was a lot of kind of squad players that were kind of chomping at the bit to get involved, and Klopp was able to mix them in with the youngsters, and the youngsters were kind of getting swept up in the confidence, and there was a real drive there. So you didn't really notice it as much when Klopp would make a lot of changes. But I think kind of without that air of confidence and good feeling around the club, you're going to notice a lot more. And I think I kind of expected that coming into the game. We kind of heard rumors of the sort of team we were going to see. And it was kind of obvious given that we still have not as many players out, but we still have a few out, and we have a few who are only back from injury. And obviously they're being eased in, and there's others who've had their struggles. So Klopp's managing their minutes. So we knew really it was going to be very much, you know, a lot of youth and maybe a couple of fringe players. And with that in mind, you knew it was going to be very disjointed, and you knew there was obviously an opportunity for Derby to kind of get an upset on us. So, you know, I'm not going to say I was expecting to go out, but I'm not saying I was confident of going through either. I was kind of on the fence, let's say. It was a weird feeling coming into this one.
It was strange because I think everyone, maybe not everyone, maybe I'm just expressing negativity as my echo goes off in the background, if you can hear that. But yeah, it almost feels to me that quite a lot of the fan base just wants to get to the break and then see what happens when we reassess after the World Cup and stuff like that. So it was a weird game to watch, and I think everyone, or most people, probably looking at it just going, get through this, if we get through, and see what happens when hopefully the squad's in a better position. And that's what we did. It wasn't a pretty game, as we'll get into, but we won the penalty shootout, and going off results today, it looks like there's only Man City out of the big six, and I think United play tomorrow, so it might not be the most difficult. I'm jinxed us already now. We're going to get Man City in the next round, obviously, but it may not be the toughest run if we avoid Man City, obviously. So yeah, it should be an interesting competition going forward. But we'll get into the game. Starting 11, because that's usually the most important thing in a game like this. We had Irish Kev in goal, Ramsey, Phillips, Gomez, Simicast. So we kind of went with the experienced back line. I think we always try to keep that. Ox and Clark were next to Basetich in midfield. And then a young front three of Frodendorf, Stewart, and Carvalho, who's obviously a bit more experienced than the other lads around him, but still relatively a baby in terms of football. Just for the podcast's sake, I'll go through the Derby team, even though I only know a handful of players. Wildsmith, Smith, Cashin, Forsyth, Robert, Sibley, Hurahan, Bird, Mendes, Lang, Collins, and Asula. Let's go with that. Yeah, so I think it's kind of the team we expected. Carl, I mean, maybe one of the experienced lads up front may have won a miss, but yeah, it was that I'd rather expected that team, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I thought maybe a Jones or a Henderson might sneak into midfield, but then again, thinking about it, I suppose you kind of want to manage Henderson's minutes, and Jones is only kind of back, and he's played a good bit lately, so probably made sense to leave them out. Yeah, it was a very young front three, but I think really we had no choice given that we have Diaz and Jota out, and we're basically juggling kind of the three senior players and Carvalho up there at the moment. So we really have to be wrapping them in cotton wool, and this is not a game you want to be starting them in. And I mean, it only kind of dawned on me, in the lead up to the game, obviously Gordon's still out, and I think he would have been someone you would have been
Yeah,
looking to in this game if he was available, given that he's played a few cup games by this point. So it really shows the depth of our injuries in attack at the moment that we can't even call on him. So I think, you know, really it was as expected, and as I touched on in the intro, given that there's a lack of confidence, and a lot of these fringe players, unlike last season, where as I said they were players who were banging on the door, these are players like Ox and stuff that are just back from injury and aren't really seeing minutes in the league. So, they're not going to be on it. And I think Ox definitely showed his quality at moments, but you can tell he's nowhere near
yeah.
100% fit, and it's going to take him some time, and hopefully he can stay fit and get that time, but only time will tell. But it was. It's what you expect from a team like this. A lot of youth, and a lot of players who aren't seeing a lot of minutes.
Yeah, and I think we kind of saw that in the early parts of the game as well, because basically most of my notes for the first half, we've dominated the ball, but we can't really do much with it. Which seemed to be the story of the game, because as I mentioned, the experienced backline never really in too much for it. I think Derby had the odd shot. I think there was the bird shot that was in the second half, so we'll get to that. But yeah, first thing I noted down of note, Ox had a half volley that just went wide. And my next note is bored. Summed up the game. Derby had a couple crosses, and Bobby Clark did try a few times to dribble through the centre of the pitch. I mean, obviously we've touched on the general vibe of the team being quite youthful. Is there any of the young lads that maybe we've not seen loads of? Because obviously Basetich has been in the squad a few times and made sub appearances. I think most people want to see quite a bit more of him when we have safer opportunities to do so. But is there any of the younger lads that are clearly more under 21 players that you wanted to see more of?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I was I was intrigued by Ramsey. I know he's not technically an under 21 player. He's been signed to be a
Yeah.
sub right back, but he's been playing for the under 21s. He's just on the road back from injury. But I was excited to see him finally get a start and see what he's all about. And I thought he gave a good accord of himself. He was willing to get up and down that right hand side and to take players on. I think he gave Sibley, I think it was on their left side, a tough time.
Mm-hmm.
Put it up against him. He tried a couple of shots that maybe were a little speculative, but you know what I mean. At least he's
Why not?
trying,
Have a
and
bang.
that's it. It's good to see. Um, Obviously, as you said, Bassett is one we have actually seen a bit of, and one that Klopp seems to have a bit of fade in, and it's certainly well placed. Um, I was intrigued to see Stewart. I've heard good things about him in recent weeks. I haven't really gotten a chance to see him. But I just don't think the service was quite there. He had one chance where I think it was
Hmm.
Carvalho hit it into him, and it was kind of just behind him. So it kind of in the moment looked like it was a chance maybe he done better with, but on the replay you could see it was behind him. So it is very difficult to pull off that technique and get it in from there. But I don't think the young players, any of them played badly individually or anything. I don't think that's what's to blame for, it being a boring as you described it first off.
Hmm.
I just think it's when you put players out who aren't playing together and particularly playing together at this level, it's going to take them a while. And maybe if we go far in this competition and we see okay, maybe slightly better 11s, but kind of similar-ish 11s. Maybe we'll start to see them gel and see more of what they're about because I think that there's a lot of talent among those young players.
Yeah, there certainly is, and I'd agree with your Ramsey shout because it's just nice to know that he isn't just like a character from the Matrix at this stage. Because I don't think anyone's seen him for the first third of the season so far. But no, it's good to see, and it was actually see him get a start and see what type of player he is. Um, it's weird because we have the most unique right back in the world, and you see Ramsey there, and he's 19 and he looks really promising. So yeah, I definitely want to see a lot more of him. Um, and this might be the competition where he just gets run after run unless we do get a Man City. But we've seen Klopp in the past; he will just roll with youngsters against good teams at times. So maybe this is Ramsey's competition, unless we get to the final where he just changes it up. Um, but yeah, my next note was that Stewart chance. I put tapping, but that's probably a bit harsh, as you say. But it was good pressing from him. I think it was one of their centre backs who got a bit overconfident and did a funky touch, didn't he? Good pressing, so that's good to see that the young lads still have that ingrained in them. My next note after that is then Simicas misses a half volley just inside the box after a weak punch from the goalkeeper. And that's basically it for my notes. But yeah, it's a weird. It was a weird first half because not much happened, but it felt like maybe we were if we had a say if we started with Darwin or even Bobby maybe to knit it together a bit more, it may have worked out a bit better because it just didn't seem to have that link to the attack.
Yeah, I think there was definitely a lack of a focal point up front. Not to knock Stewart, but he is a young lad, and I think Derby, while they're in Division Two, like they had a lot of kind of they've one of their centre halves is one of their most experienced players. They've got experience. I know their other centre half, that the Irish lad, the one as you said made the mistake in the run up to Stewart's chance, is young, but he's playing a lot of football and I think they're going to have the know-how to kind of work their way around a young lad up top. So, you need kind of a more experienced head up there. And maybe, as I said, if we'd gone with a Nunes or a Bobby, we it might have been a very different half. With someone up there to pull the strings and lead the line, but at the same time, I completely understand Klopp leaving them out given the circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but as you said, there wasn't too much goal mouth action in the first half at either end. Um, but I think that they did improve in the second half as we'll come on to. And what I will say in the first half, the young lads controlled it well. They had the vast majority of the ball. Didn't give it away too much. You usually when you see youngsters in come in a cup game, there's mistakes that the ball's given away. But the only two loose balls I can remember, I think one was by Passages, and I was actually surprised because it was very unlike him. And the other was by Joe Gomez when he put it out
Yeah,
for a corner. And I think Joe Gomez is pretty much at the moment, poor Joe. I feel for him honestly, but he's just due, a mistake game, it seems. And lucky that one wasn't a costly one, fortunately.
Are you that person who has everything? The coolest merch, and those must-have fan threads? Well, over at our Anfield Index shop, we've gone that extra mile when it comes to pimping up your Liverpool collection. From our popular range of bespoke design t-shirts, sweaters, hoodies and hats, to our signature edition mugs, prints and coasters, all provided with fast worldwide shipping. We have something for every red. We also stock official LFC merchandise and are licensed with the Premier League and UEFA to sell official iron-on shirt badges and sleeve patches. As a listener to this podcast, you can get 10% off everything with coupon code AIPRO10. Just head over to AnfieldIndex.shop or find us on Etsy by searching for Anfield Index.
Yes, he does seem to love a bit of a blind pass backwards, doesn't he? maybe don't do that, but I suppose if you're going to do it in the League Cup rather than the League, but that's already cost us, so, don't do it again. Yeah, it was a strange first half, and that's why we're basically going to skip over it, because not much bloody happened. Into the second half then, I mean, what was your feelings at half-time? Were you thinking maybe get the more experienced lads on a bit earlier to try and win the game without the pressure of penalties? And to be honest, I thought it may have still went to extra time at that stage. I didn't realise it just went straight into penalties till obviously later in the game. But I was kind of thinking maybe bring on a Bobby or a Darwin to try and finish off the game as soon as possible. But we did wait till I didn't know what timed out. It was about 60 odd minutes, I think. But yeah, what were you thinking at half time?
I mean, I was certainly thinking get on Nunes for Stewart and get on Harvey Elliott for one of the midfielders to give us that creativity and try and make something happen, because so little had happened in the first half. But let's be honest, we completely knew it's Jurgen Klopp. He likes to take his time with changes unless his hand is forced. So, I wasn't expecting any changes at halftime. I knew obviously he was going to give the lads 15, 20 minutes to see if they could step it up and make something happen. And like I did feel, to a degree that they did step it up in that opening 15, 20 minutes. There was a couple of half chances.
Yeah, there wasn't. And one of the young lads we've not really mentioned so far, I think he was almost front and centre of it. I think it did start off with a Derby chance. I think I mentioned earlier that Bird one on the left-hand side of our box. But then Frondorf, he had that header. He probably should have shot with his header rather than pass it back. He's been copying Bobby too much in training, basically.
Yeah, I mean, he was lively, Farndorf. Like he didn't. Again, like I just don't think it was well balanced up top. So maybe they didn't always get the service and the chance to impress on the ball. But I think he was willing to chase everything. He was very lively. He wasn't shying away, and I think that was a nice move that saw him behind at the back post. And as you said, he probably should have tried to nod it in at the near post and see what happened. Whereas maybe the keeper parries it back out. You never know, but he tries to flick it across and see if someone's there, and it's just unfortunately there's no one on the end of it.
Malcolm Frondorf, born in 2004. I just God, don't you just feel disgustingly old?
If you feel old, how old do I feel?
No, I can't do that. I can't do that anymore. Oh dear. Yeah, it was strange because I think I'm not sure what position he actually is. I think he's meant to be a 10. If anyone watches the academy a bit more than I do, put it in chat. But he obviously played right back for us a bit in pre-season, if I remember correctly. Right wing, obviously, in this game. I think he was a second striker or a 10 in the odd under-18 game I've seen him in. But yeah, he looks an interesting player. Maybe not have that burst of pace to be an ideal forward for us, but he's certainly talented. I think he's still only 18. So he might be one to keep an eye on. But yeah, certainly interesting. Maybe the one that caught the eye the most out of the starting lot, I'd probably say. Obviously, Clark had a nice couple moments. Bacetic, as we said, a bit more experience and Stewart's 20. He's probably due a loan, maybe. You'd probably say. Just after his header, he then provides a cross for Carvalho. It's just, if that was a Darwin Núñez, I reckon that's a diving headed goal, I think.
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, obviously as well, Carvalho had probably forced the first half decent save of the match just before the Ferndorf header. I mean, I think
Yes.
Carvalho. Now we haven't talked too much about him. I mean, it's funny. He's a youngster himself, only 20, only coming into the side, and it felt like particularly in the first half, and in that early spell in the second half that he was the one we were kind of looking to try and make something happen because he was the senior figure in that front three, and he was lively, good bits of skill, some nice vision, and of course he had that shot. Like he's lively, and he's another one you're excited to get more minutes. As I said, earlier, we are kind of balancing out three senior forwards at the moment, and as a result, he's getting some minutes to cover for them. But it's still maybe not as much as he'd want, or maybe often in the position he'd want, or whatever the case might be. So, he's for example, he's not a left winger in a 4-4-2, but a left inside forward. That's probably where he's at his best, and at least he got to see some minutes there today, and hopefully he'll see more if we can go far enough in the cups, and hopefully that's enough then to impress and get him more minutes in the league where he wants to be and in the position he wants to be in.
Yeah, almost similarly to Ramsey, I think he may be just one who gets locked in this competition, whether it's maybe right centre mid where he has a bit more freedom, or in the left wing, as you say, whilst people are injured. I'm not sure when the next round of this is. I'll guess in February or January when we're back. But yeah, I think Carvalho will be locked in this competition until the very late stages. Derby did have the odd, maybe not chance, but opportunity. I think there was a 3v1 where they kind of just screwed it up a bit. It might have been offside, but I don't think there's a VAR. So we're at the peril of actual referees in this competition. This is when the game changed for Liverpool and me, Carl, because the subs happened, and then my stream couldn't accept these subs happening because it kept repeating them 4 times, then crashed. So I missed about 10 minutes here, so you may have to do the heavy lifting, but I basically worded it as we brought adults, and I'm classing Elliot as an adult.
Yeah, I think like just before our subs, Derby made their subs. They brought in McGoldrick and is it Dobbin?
Yes,
The
Dobbin,
Everton Dobbin,
Everton kid, yeah,
the
yeah.
Everton lad, and I think he had a counter attack where he kind of ran down the left side and beat a player and got in, but nothing really came of it. Kind of his cross just went wildly out, but kind of his pace was certainly a bit of a warning to us that they suddenly had an outlet. Um, but our lads come on and they almost make an instant impact. I think Harvey Elliott and Bobby combining leads to a Bobby chance. And instantly you did see an injection of that quality. You know what I mean? Suddenly Bobby and Núñez in and around the box were kind of pulling the Derby players this way and that way. It was a lot less simple for them to defend, and I think. As I said, I wanted to see Harvey Elliott on for the very reason that he injects some vision that we lacked in midfield, and there's some really nice balls from him, and I thought based on the first couple minutes they're on, oh, surely we're gonna get a goal here, but it kind of then settled into now. Don't get me wrong, it was certainly more dangerous than the first half, and we actually created some chances, but for the most part, it just felt like control rather than penetration. The Derby were able to kind of keep their guard up, and the couple times we got in, the keeper was equal to it, unfortunately. But as you hinted at, maybe if we'd made these changes that little earlier, they would have had a little more time to settle into the game and make that key intervention.
Yeah, it was good to see Elliot almost take over the game, might be too strong. but it was nice to see him have almost, well, I say immediate, I didn't bloody see, I missed 10 minutes, so almost immediate impact. But it was nice to see him almost show, how do I word this? Almost he's like a level above the young lads that were playing. That might sound harsh, but I think obviously the Blackburn loan, the time he's obviously played in Liverpool's first team, it shows maybe that he's just I don't know why I'm doing hand signals on a pass, but I always do it. But it may just show he's kind of like he's taken the steps that these lads still need to take.
Yeah, I mean, he has an air of about him, like he seems like a good 5 years older than he is, because nothing phases him. He's so confident. He wants to show for the ball. He wants to get on it. He wants to make things happen. We were talking about Ramsey in the first half having a couple of shots and said, well, at least he took those shots. Harvey Elliott's always willing to kind of try that pass, to try that shot. I mean, I think largely in particularly in the first half, obviously, we were either, as you said, Clark were trying to dribble through, but he was meeting traffic, or we'd be trying to go wide, particularly through Ramsey. But Derby were dealing reasonably well with balls from width. So, Harvey was playing these kind of deep crosses from deeper that were actually giving Derby something to think about, and finding or almost finding Liverpool heads or feet, and it just kind of changed things up because he's willing to take those chances to try something, and that's what you need when you're in this kind of situation, and that's what he brings, and it's just it's so exciting to think that this is him at this age. What is he going to be in 5 years time? I mean, he may be the most exciting prospect we've had since Trent, to be honest, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think we've seen it in bits and bobs this season. It's just maybe first of all, finding him a position that is truly his, I think, is probably the biggest issue. But if it's right midfield or this right central midfielder, I think that's what we're going to have to build with. And yeah, just keep developing. And I think everyone sees the talents there. And even if he doesn't hit world-class status, he's still going to be useful for us. And I think that's the bottom line. We already see that in him. So that's really nice to see. My next note, I think I missed a sub whilst my stream was dead. I think Ben DUDEK came on. I'm not sure for who. Because as soon as my stream came back, it was him dribbling into about 4 people, then fell over, but he looked fast. Yeah, so Ben DUDEK, I know he's a name that people, I think it's the Under-19 Champions League, I think people have been bigging him up in. He obviously was only on for about 15 minutes, but he did look, for a 16-year-old especially, he did look fun, it's probably the word.
Yeah, I mean, when he came on initially, actually, I was laughing at my missus because I was saying it's probably the first amusing thing in the match that, like, got a quick kind of glance of the camera at him, his name kind of looked like Dork on the back. It's the first time I was entertained in the match. But immature jokes aside, I mean, the lad, like, for 16, so confident, as you said, where he tried to dribble it past multiple players, and it was a couple of times where he did manage to dribble it his way in, and he was direct, and I think at that point where he got in, unfortunately, it looked to me like he tried to go for a shot, which in one way you have to commend him for having the bravery to try something, but on the other hand, you're thinking maybe is it a little bit of naivety, should he try and just simply cross the back. But nonetheless, his ability to get in and his bravery to try and get in was impressive. And he was switching sides, and, like, no matter where he was trying to get on the ball and make something happen. And that's the key thing with a young player. You're not expecting them to kind of show results straight from the off, but what you do want them to show his confidence and bravery, and I think that lad has it in spades. Like he looks, yeah, you hear he's the one player. I suppose given his age as well, it's particularly notable. But you do hear about him a lot,
Yeah.
and you can see why. Like he's very brave, and he looks to have ability as well.
Yeah, I think it's him, Bobby Clark. I hear the most about, and the Clark thing is mainly because they just always say his dad played with James Milner. So yeah, good job Milner wasn't playing today, or that would have been brought up at least 11 times in the game. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how Doyle. We may not even see, like, obviously, may see him in early League Cup rounds, but we might not see him properly for another 2 or 3 years because 16 is just mental. But yeah, a fun 15 minutes and a really nice first impression to the first team. Anything else happened in that 10 minutes I missed? Because I think the next note after that was the Elliott chance from the Ox pass. Anything happened between them?
No, not really. I think the most notable thing obviously was the Bobby chance, as I said, the kind of almost the instant impact from the subs. But they're after that, we did have to wait a little while for the next clear chance because, as I said, Derby managed to stand strong, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah. But well, there was that chance, the Elliott one. He just didn't really connect with the ball that well. It was a nice pass by Ox. I mean, you mentioned Ox tried a few things in the first half, but I don't want to be too hard. I don't want to be harsh at all. Really, it's just a tough one to judge with Ox because he's obviously. I don't think he's basically played a handful of minutes this season. He came on up front at the weekend randomly. So this is his first start, and obviously playing with a really young team around him. It's just hard to judge, isn't it? He had a couple nice moments, but he didn't really take over the game.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely showed, that he was one of the senior players on the pitch at times. He's very calm on the ball when he got on it, and he tried to make things happen. And that ball was probably the highlight to Elliot. And I think on first glance, I was maybe harsh on Elliot. I thought he maybe should have put a bit more on it, but then on watching the replay, I think he places it well, and it's actually a good reaction by the
Yeah,
keeper to slap it, catch it with his fingers. Like, so I mean, but that it was a fantastic ball by Ox, and it wasn't the only one he played in. I really feel for Ox. I mean, he's a cult hero around the club for obvious reasons, and but he's just had such bad luck, and I think he's a shadow of the player he was. Now, he was such because just no player is going to be able to take that many injuries and still be the same
yeah,
player, and it's just so unfortunate because it's almost sad watching on the pitch, and in a way, I kind of wanted him to move on in the summer, and that's not because I don't like him. As I said, I certainly do, but it's sad to me watching him because of what's happened, and you just can't help but think, what could it be? And if he just had a bit more luck, what if he hadn't gotten that impact injury against Roma? And it just that was in his first season. It just feels like it's gone downhill from there because it's just never. It's been so stop start, and it's
mm,
just frustrating. Like at this point, you know, maybe I'd love to be proven wrong. I'd love him to kind of play a key part in this season, and maybe a season in which we achieve something, and for him to be able to put his mark on it. But I just kind of feel maybe for all parties, particularly for him, because I think he just needs to. He's no longer.
just needs to
He's
play.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. He's not a young player anymore. He's in his late 20s. Like, he needs to go and play, and who knows if his fitness will allow that to happen. But if it is going to happen, it'll probably have to be away from Liverpool. So you know what I mean. Maybe if he can. It's unfortunate that now we've only got the one game left, but but maybe even if he can get a few minutes against Southampton, and then he doesn't pick up any kind of injuries, maybe another team or two in the Premier League might take a look at him in January, and he might get to go and play some meaningful minutes somewhere.
Yeah, there's certainly Premier League teams that could find use in Oxlade-Chamberlain. I mean, even we could use him in certain situations, considering the state of our midfield. But I mean, you meant we're playing Southampton at the weekend. He'd still get in their team. An on-form Ox is still better than, I'd say, still better than James Ward-Prowse, for example. Obviously, they're a team of toddlers, so an experienced player like Ox, I think that might be the perfect move for him. honest, going back to his the team he came through at. So yeah, it's sad because it's weird because it doesn't feel that long ago where Ox was quite important to us. But then that was 17, 18. That was ages ago. It doesn't feel that long. It's weird. It's weird. His Liverpool days have just been so weird but horrific at the same time, all for injury reasons. But yeah, hopefully, because he is very likeable, as you say. Hopefully, he gets his career up and running either in January or into next season. But that was basically my last note. I think there was a couple headers, but nothing really big. Onto the penalty shootout. My stream died again, and then Sky Sports News were doing adverts instead of showing penalty shootout. So I missed the first two penalties. But David McGoldrick scores for them. I have not seen that penalty. So if it was good or anything impressive, do.
It was a solid penalty.
Solid.
He picked his side and he hammered home. Not much more you can say than that.
It must have been a good penalty to beat Irish DUDEK, to be fair. Basetic taking our first penalty. I mean, he misses it, obviously, but he shows a good big set of bollock to take the first penalty for a 18-year-old, I presume he is.
Yeah, I mean, before the penalty shootout, I was trying to do the takers in my head, and I mean, I got them wrong. I'll hold my head. I think I got 3 out of the 5. But
were you wanting the Nat Phillips, Harry Maguire top bin penalty?
No. Keep centre backs well away from penalties. But I think I had obviously Bobby, Nunes, and Elliott who all took them. But I also expected Tsimikas to take one, and actually I had Ox, so I got 4 out of the 5. But I expected Tsimikas, given he was the hero, in the last penalty shootout of note. But for whatever reason, obviously, Basetic felt confident and he stepped up. And not only did he step up, he stepped up first. It's very strange that it wasn't Bobby or Nunes first and the other one last, but whatever. But yeah, he steps up, and I think again there was a lot of moments here where I was harsh on first look, and then thought I wasn't as bad. I thought it was a bad penalty on first look, but it wasn't a terrible penalty. Obviously it could have been put nearer to the corner, but nonetheless, as well, their goalkeeper was off his line, which was quite amusing to me that the ref kept giving out to their keeper for coming off the line, but then he didn't
bring it back.
Just retake penalties. Yeah. Well, what does giving out to him achieve if there's no threat of punishment? Just
careful. You're nearly on the penalty spot that one there. It's fine, but just don't do it again.
Yeah, it was strange. So it was an average penalty, and obviously the keeper saves it with a little help by of cheating, let's say. It not too much else to say other than that about those first 2 penalties.
Yeah, at least we won. At least we won, so it's not a sad moment for the young lad. Conor Hourihane then gets his saved. Ox scores one. I think it just hits off the post, which is always lovely. Any goal that hits off the post is fantastic.
Again, it was another. It was a fantastic penalty. That's what you want to do, in off the post.
Absolutely.
Very, very hard to save, and if not impossible. And again, it was just him showing again his seniority, and he didn't even celebrate it. I liked it. He was just cool as a cucumber, just walked away. And it was good to see from Mox that he made it through the 90, and he was able to show some of his experience and ability.
Absolutely. Another penalty saved by Kevin. How do you actually... Is it Quiveen? Is it Quiveen? You're Irish. Quiveen. Kevin.
Sure, I call him Big Kev. So.
Big Kev. Yeah, we'll call him Big Kev. Another save by Big Kev. Maybe it's a good thing Bobby didn't take the first penalty, because that was possibly the worst penalty I've ever seen.
Yeah, what was it? I don't know what he's obviously trying to chip it into the top, but why? You know what I mean? You have the chance to take the lead. We know why. It's Bobby Firmino. He's always gonna do something mad. But like, really, as the senior player there, you should be taking a leaf out of Ox's book. You know, either go hammer straight down the middle and hope gamble on the keeper diving, or find a corner like Ox did. If it had cost us, you know, if we hadn't won. It's easy now saying, just it's Bobby and laughing. But if we hadn't won, I think Bobby would have shouldered a lot of the blame for that. Because no, obviously,
Yeah.
if he'd taken a normal penalty, keeper might still have saved it. But nonetheless, at least then you're putting it on the keeper. I mean, it was a needless risk, and it did not pay off in any sense.
If you are going to Panenka, do what Fabinho did. Don't put it in the top of the stand. That's basically our lesson here. Yeah, that was a fucking awful penalty. Louis Sibley scores for Derby. Darwin Núñez, football narrative was weird. I think he's not missed a penalty in his career or something like that. I might be wrong in that. I was ready for that bloke to save that penalty because it would have been our season. Never missed a penalty, comes to Liverpool, misses a penalty. Because I think Fabinho did that. But Darwin, that penalty, I don't know if it was perfect, if it was crap, if the keeper should have saved it. It went in and it was, I'm going to say perfect, but it was the weirdest perfect penalty I've ever seen.
Yeah, he places it really well, but maybe doesn't get quite the pace on it that he could have, let's say. So it looks kind of awkward. And the keeper he does get close to it, but I think maybe the keeper, funny enough, maybe costs himself by coming off his line because, you know,
Wait,
by the time he's come off his line and gotten out, if he'd just gone straight out, maybe he would have made it to it in time, given that it wasn't the paciest of penalties, but it was well placed and, you know, fortunately it found the back of the net.
absolutely. Then Irish Kev saves Everton alone Lewis Dobbins penalty. I mean, if we ever have Alisson in a penalty shootout and we've got a spare sub,
This is exactly
Yeah.
this is exactly what I said to my missus. I said this is getting to the stage where if we were in the Champions League final in a penalty shootout and Klopp threw on Big Kev for Alisson, I wouldn't complain for the shootout because he just seems that good at them. He doesn't look phased. You just watch it. Like I've seen some of those like notable senior keepers in football. You can see nerves in their face in a penalty shootout. He just looks like the coolest guy in the world. Does not give two shits. He's just going to save them all. Like he just it's so impressive for a young keeper. A young keeper who's not playing like regularly for his club. I mean, I feel for Kelleher in a way that he got injured during the summer because, you know, I was kind of expecting him to go out on loan. There was talk of that in the media over here in Ireland that he was tempted to go out on loan because he knew obviously with Travers and why am I blanking on his name?
Bazunu.
Exactly. Um, that they were going to be playing Premier League football, so there was a pressure on the competition for that Ireland #1 jersey, and you know that he'd seek football, and obviously I think there was rumors of Forest maybe looking at a loan from, and then that never kind of formulated, and then he
Yeah,
got
and they got
injured, and
Dean Henderson, yeah.
you know, I felt sorry for him because he's got as Klopp called him the best sub keeper in the league last year, and to me he is that. Like he's a quality keeper. His distribution is fantastic. It's not just his shot stopping; his distribution is fantastic. It's up there among the best in the league, and you know I think he is good enough to be playing for a Premier League club. And I know obviously as a Liverpool fan, I want to be greedy and say no, I want him on our bench for these moments, but you know, being putting aside my bias, he should be playing regularly. So I feel for him in a way that he isn't. But the fact that he can just come in, you know, out from the cold basically, and just be that calm and collected in a penalty shootout and save 3 penalties, like it's just class. Like nothing else for it.
Hello, I'm here to annoy you. I'm here to annoy you into listening to more of me and more of others on EPL Index. We don't just have the Anfield Index stuff, we've got EPL Index as well, which covers the entirety of the Premier League. And we have 3 podcasts and a whole bunch of really good writing on EPLindex.com. The podcasts are my own Two-Footed podcast, which is every day at 4 p.m., Monday through Friday, covering the whole league. We have A Tad Predictable, hosted by Tadiwa. You know Tadiwa, he does Anfield Index. He presents A Tad Predictable before every Premier League match week. And then Kevin DeVries and his crew on the EPL Roundtable, they're every week after the Premier League match week. So make sure you listen to everything we're doing on EPL Index and follow us there on Twitter at EPL Index. Thank you. Bye-bye.
He really is. And I think the thing with Kelleher is, when he first started appearing in the first team, I think everyone was like, who is this lost child who got onto the pitch? But it kind of flipped overnight, because I think it was like, we play Arsenal in the League Cup every year. I don't know what year it was, but it was against Arsenal. And I remember him kind of being good, but having a mare at the same time. It was like, but maybe ever since that game, he just seems to have matured quite early for a goalkeeper. It's just really impressive. But yeah, you are. It might be easier to loan someone, say, to the Championship, because Dean Henderson obviously going out on loan to Forest, but he's done it in the Premier League before. He's done it in the Championship before. So every year there's teams in the Championship looking for a keeper. Or we can even just trade him. Once we get taken over by Jim Ratcliffe, we can go to Nice, something like that, if that actually happens. But no, there'll be no shortage of takers, and I think I've seen we were linked with a random German keeper the other day. So maybe the plan is to loan out Kelleher or sell with a buyback, because obviously that it might be more tempting for teams to do that. I'm not saying sell him, but if it's easier to get him a better location that way, it might be better for his development that way. But yeah, he's an excellent keeper, and I never saw it in him when I used to watch him in the under-21s or under-23s, whatever it's back. It just seemed to click, and he just matured. So yeah, it's so impressive, and I do want to see him as a somewhere. So yeah, he's obviously the man of the match. He's the only one who bloody did anything. But Elliott does go for the winning penalty. Yeah, we're through, Carl. It means our streak continues on this podcast. Let's keep winning games. Obviously, some big teams have gone out. I think I alluded to in the intro. I think Arsenal went out to Brighton. Chelsea got beat by City.
Spurs.
Yes, Forest. Yes, did we? So was that done?
They've been a bit broken all season, to be honest.
That's true. I think breaking Spurs was done decades ago. But if I just get the results up, if the EFL thing was actually on my page.
Spurs actually played a full team, like pretty much. It was a similar team to the team that we played on the weekend. It's a bit of an embarrassment. Now, obviously, we lost to Forest in the league, so we can't say much. But
don't remind me.
to be honest, I was saying there a couple of weeks ago. For me, like Liverpool and Spurs have been kind of similar this season. Like they're both largely, they're big teams that are largely underperforming. I think Spurs kind of have been less punished for it. They picked up more points, but the teams have the same goal difference. I think similar goals conceded, similar enough goals scored. Like it's just that Spurs were less punished, and I just think they're now being punished for it. Unfortunately for them, but probably good for us, seeing as they're one of the teams we're obviously going to be looking at for Champions League football.
It's karma for signing Richarlison. That's what I'll go with. I'll go through the team just because might as well. Leicester went through. Blackburn have went through. Wolves, Forest, Newcastle, Southampton, Brighton, Gillingham, Lincoln, Man City, Charlton, MK Dons, and Manchester United are against Villa tomorrow. Bournemouth, us, and Burnley. So that's a nice mix of teams. Obviously, if we avoid Man City, I'd probably make us favourites in that game. But if it's not us or City that win this, I mean, Newcastle must be seeing this as a huge opportunity. But it's obviously a huge opportunity for us to retain it as well. Because avoid Man City, even if we do get Man City, just play first team and try and beat them. But yeah, it's opened up the competition already.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, as you said, Newcastle have gone through. They've looked good this season. Brighton, another team, have looked good this season, have gone through. So I think outside Liverpool and City, they're probably the two teams you're looking at the moment. Obviously, United are still in it, but they're playing Villa tomorrow, and we know what happened just on the weekend in that very fixture. So no guarantees for them. But I suppose if Villa go through, you have to be looking at them as a contender, given that they have a manager who's a cup specialist. So
Unai Emery mode activated.
exactly. So, it won't be easy. It never is, especially with the heavy rotation and that. But with Spurs, Arsenal, and Chelsea gone, there's a lot less big teams in there. So you certainly got to look at it as one you can win. And obviously we're not going to win the league this year. I think that ship is sailed now. I laughed on the weekend. I was over in Liverpool for my Stags. We were in a taxi going to the airport after the match, and a lad got on the radio and said that oh, if we can win, go on a streak after the World Cup, we can get back up on uh, into the contention, and the host pointed out, well, look, we're what's it, 15 points behind, and he said, oh well, sure, we made up 14 points a couple of years ago. And I mean, I think he conveniently left out the fact that was with games in hand and whatnot. But I admire his optimism, but I can't share it, unfortunately. I'm going to be a pessimist and say that the league's done. The Champions League, we got a very tough draw. Who know? Our bogey team, Real Madrid. Who knows how that's going to go? But I think Liverpool, in an ideal world, they need to keep this period of success up in some way, and maybe at the moment that the League Cup looks maybe the path of least resistance in that sense. They might be our. It's never easy to win a trophy, but it might be the easiest way. So we have to have our shot at it. We're still in it now, despite being in a bad period. We've managed to scrape through against Derby. I just say that by the time of the next round, we'll hopefully have more players back, the likes of Matip and Diaz. Some of the players that, as we said earlier, are not 100% at the moment in terms of their fitness. They're just going to work on their way back. They'll be fitter and sharper. Fingers crossed. And maybe if we're really lucky, if all us Liverpool fans, maybe if we ask Santa Claus for Christmas, we might just get a midfielder in January that'll strengthen things. So we could be, a lot healthier squad-wise when it comes to the next round of this competition. So as you say, we might have a real chance of a trophy here, and why not try and retain it?
Jeff Bezos is buying us Mbappe in January as well, so that will. But we will finish up there. The draw is tomorrow night after the United Villa game, so it'll be interesting to see who we get. I'm not sure when the next round actually will be, but unless it is when I am on holiday next year, it will be me hosting. And if I am on holiday, get in the bin. But thank you everyone for listening. Thank you especially everyone who's listened live on Discord. We have a little streak going here with the domestic cups, so that's still going. But thank you everyone for listening. Goodbye.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.